Hi, I'm Ken Howard, and welcome to the Gay Therapy LA podcast. Today, I want to talk about gay men who live together too early. So over my long 29 years in 2021 career of providing couples therapy for gay men in California, as well as relationship coaching to guys all over the United States and other countries of the world, I've observed the same topics or challenges, presenting issues, we therapists say, and these keep coming up over and over. And I like to address these topics here on the show because I do that with the hopes that these discussions help gay male couples all over the world, wherever you're hearing this. We're up to something like 50 countries now, so thank you for that. Challenges in gay couples can be, very commonly about sex, money, career, age and income or cultural differences, time management, how to share household responsibilities, especially when it's a home you share, whether it's an apartment or a flat or a condo or a house or a loft or a ranch, any kind of dwelling. So challenges can emerge at any time in the relationship. And I've come to learn that some problems or challenges are associated with or coincide with different developmental points in the relationship, from the very early stages to the middle years to longer term stages when you've been together a long time. And gay male relationships, I've found, tend to follow remarkably consistent and predictable stages from the time that the partners meet. And this is true with different regions and cultures and personalities, and it's just kind of a natural thing. Relationships, gay male relationships that I study, kind of have recognizable developmental phases, just like the way a person grows up, from a child to a teen to an adult to a middle-aged adult to a senior. So let's talk about the early dating phase. Early dating, straight and gay, is mainly about who is this guy, and it's gathering data on each other as well as responding to what you learn about the other person emotionally, physically, like attraction, or just how they kind of move and what they're made of physically, and socially, how do they interact with you and with other people. And the longer you're together, the more you get an idea of how that person balances their personal self versus their professional self, that professional role, whatever they do to make a living, and about their personal habits, just ways of living every day. Trust in the relationship is cultivated between the partners, and behaviors and reactions get more predictable over time. Dating becomes less of an event each time that you do it into the relationship, and more of a way of life, of intermingling daily and weekly together. You learn about each other in terms of how you relate to your respective housing, your work routines, like your schedule and grooming and dressing and commuting, your personal care habits. Do you go to the gym? Do you practice yoga? What's your diet like? What is your medical care like? And how that coordinates with your partner's corresponding daily routines. So eventually the level of mutual commitment builds from just dating to being boyfriends to living more like a domestic couple, and merging in your minds from a strictly I philosophy, the singular one, to the we philosophy, the collective one, feeling like part of what I call the two-person family unit, which I believe gay men are, even without children or even without pets. It's a two-person family unit that's just as legitimate as any other type of family unit. So getting to the point where you see yourselves as a two-person unit just takes time. And this can vary from a short time to a long time, but it's a feeling or a sense that you're ready to start seeing each other this way, which takes the gradual building of trust and the resolution of certain anxieties that each partner might have about the growing sense of commitment that's forming between the two of you. Or more. We don't want to leave out polyamorous relationships and polycules. So the development of the relationship often leads to a break from the previous way of being. Living with your parents, being away at college, living as a single guy, to cohabitation, living together with a partner. And living together with or without marriage, depending on what you want and what's allowable where you are, that can be seen as a sequential developmental manifestation of increasing trust and intimacy and bonding in a relationship, and in a sense, some melding of two lives into one comprehensive domestic home life together. And yet, for gay men especially, the bonding must also preserve some independence and autonomy, which is a classic male characteristic, both straight and gay. A lot of guys, gay or straight, really like to have a sense of autonomy, or else they feel kind of emasculated or even castrated. Men like to preserve their individuality. You ever had dad has the man cave kind of thing, or a guy might have the gentleman's study, let's say, or something to kind of call his own. Is for most men, straight and gay, they like to have something to point to that's strictly theirs. And it's just a comfort thing that men like to have. So let's talk about early cohabitation between two gay men in a relationship. So when two gay men in a relatively new relationship find themselves moving in together before that trust has been allowed to be cultivated, then that can feel like the developmental stages of a relationship are taking place out of their naturally occurring social order. It kind of rushes the developmental process in a way that can be jarring, and then it demands some kind of backwards adjustment. And the reasons that gay men might combine their domiciles early in a relationship can be responding to pressures about having to make a decision about where to live when the terms of your rental lease come up. Oh, I don't want to renew my lease for another 12 months because we're spending a lot of time together, so you've only been together a couple months, and then you decide to move in. Or it may be because you have to leave an unsafe house. Maybe there's crime in your neighborhood, or it's somehow not safe and you just want to get out. Or you have an impractical home, such as you have a new job and it results in a longer commute, and maybe your boyfriend or partner lives closer to your job. Or you have a financial hardship, you've lost a job or you've had a reduction in income, and suddenly that makes pooling your resources with your new boyfriend seem to make sense. Or it could be to escape conflict with roommates. I had a client recently talk about needing to get out of a house because his roommates were just very, very messy and just doing too many drugs, and he didn't want to be there. And career developmental issues. Maybe going back to school for a graduate program or to finish a college degree. So the guys can find themselves falling into the circumstance of moving in together, where changes seem to be happening faster than they can really think about them, and risking that they behave reactively, impulsively, and suddenly, losing their conscious volition to control the natural unfolding of the relationship together. Moving in together before you each feel emotionally ready to take this step can make one or the other or both of you feel like life is something that is happening to you, rather than making the decision to cohabitate as a natural outgrowth of the emotional bond that you're cultivating in the relationship together. As I often say, it's better to meld your households to create one when it is an emotional decision, not just an impulsive or a practical or just a convenient one. That's not the right reason to live together. You want to live together because that's how you each feel about each other, and you want to take that next step of raising the level of commitment, and you want to kind of stop thinking in single terms and start thinking more in couple terms. So let's talk about feeling the pains of early cohabitation. The partners in the relationship can realize that they moved in together too early when several feelings come up for the other one. feeling stifled or like you miss a certain personal autonomy is probably the biggest one. And this doesn't just mean that you're living together and monogamous and you want sexual variety. These feelings can come up whether you're monogamous or whether you've negotiated one of the many variations on consensual non-monogamy, also known as an open relationship. And I've had previous podcast episodes and blog articles also on gaytherapyla.com/blog. That's how you find those, about open relationships or consensual non-monogamy. And I underwent a training for therapists who want to become more expert in consensual non-monogamy, and that's what I help a lot of guys with. But I also support gay male couples who are monogamous, and that's not just a binary designation. There's many shades of gray between non-monogamy and monogamy. Does that include porn? Does that include masturbation? How each couple defines consensual non-monogamy or just how they define monogamy really varies from couple to couple to couple all over the world. And so, it's more about the emergence of feelings about ambivalence about the relationship. If you move in together too early, thoughts and feelings can come up that make you say, is this the right guy for me after all? Or almost grieving the loss of a sense of privacy and autonomy that you had before. This guy was here all the time. Go home. What do you're still here? What do you mean you're still here? So your home needs to feel like your personal sanctuary against the stressors of the world. It's the place that you come home to and shut the world out and kind of let down your hair and put your feet up, and you're supposed to feel very safe and comfortable in your own home. And living together takes compromises when you live with somebody, either a roommate or a partner, because the home has to meet the needs of both or more partners, not just you anymore. You have to tolerate dirty dishes in the sink more often. You have to compromise on what to eat for dinner. You might differ on how hot or cold you like the temperature in your place. You might have to discuss or coordinate your schedules more. And this can feel like you're having to answer to your partner in a way that you haven't had to do since you lived with your parents. So while everyone who is newly cohabitating can feel this way, even if you've been dating a long time before you cohabitate, it's different when you move in together early. There's a sense that you weren't really ready for that, and yet here you are, finding yourself under one roof anyway. And the feelings can be confusing about whether you're ambivalent about your partner or just ambivalent about living with your partner yet. And that's an important difference. Let's talk about negotiating how to live together. So I educate gay male couples often on the idea that couples come to live on a point on a spectrum between relationship styles where there's enmeshment versus estrangement. And this is what couples experts of all kinds, straight, gay, whatever, call the dance. One person is in the distancer role and the other person is in the pursuer role. And that's where one partner in general has a fear of engulfment by the other, and the other has a fear of abandonment. So if you look at any relationship, you'll find these dynamics. Might be subtle, but they're generally there. And, it's okay when we have some of this because it can contribute to a sense of balance and harmony in the dynamics of the relationship. It's not all bad to have those roles, but we do tend to partner with people who are a little bit opposite of ourselves in these ways, and that happens just kind of naturally. That opposites attract kind of thing. Enmeshment in a relationship can have the feeling, as I always say, that you're on top of one another and not in the good way. It can feel like you're conjoined twins with no latitude for room for individuality and independence and autonomy in terms of your thoughts and feelings and behaviors or friends, interests, activities, all that. The couple is perceived as always being together as one unit without an individualized personality for each partner. Estrangement, on the other hand, is a couple who doesn't spend enough time together. They function like roommates or like platonic buddies who live under the same roof, but they're never seen together often enough for many people in their lives, either their friends or socially, to even realize that they're a couple. They have to work really hard at having a date night or scheduled sex, because otherwise their respective individual pursuits, including work but other hobbies, would keep them apart most of the time. So enmeshment makes a person want to have some healthy time away from their partner, and estrangement makes a person yearn for some quality time with their partner. Each person tends to have a very innate natural preference for where they would like their relationship to fall on a point on that spectrum. And the best relationships have a pretty strong agreement about where that point is. But resolving any differences there includes, first, recognizing where your feelings fall on that spectrum and perhaps why, informed by your history and the experiences in your family of origin growing up. Also by what you observed in other relationships that you either admired or didn't, or, oh boy, I want a relationship just like Bill and Tom, or, oh boy, thank God we don't have the same relationship as Hassan and Joe. Ugh, I wouldn't want to live like that. You probably have thoughts or feelings about which gay relationships you know of that you admire and almost want to emulate versus which ones you just wouldn't be a part of. That wouldn't work for you. And it can also be from experiences from your own previous relationships. Maybe in a new relationship with this new guy, you want to live somewhat differently from the way that you and your ex did. And then you ask each other, where are you on the spectrum between enmeshment versus estrangement? And why? Exploring their values. Why is that important to you? And then where would you like to be? And sometimes there's a discussion about very consciously changing to be more together and really focusing on that bonding, or sometimes more apart, really starting to cultivate an individuality so that you're not quite so dependent on one another in a way that might feel stifling. So if you find discrepancies between where you are on the spectrum of enmeshment versus estrangement and where your partner is, you discuss what a compromise might look like. The one who has the fear of engulfment needs to increase their ability to tolerate the anxiety of closeness. And the one who has the fear of abandonment needs to increase their ability to tolerate the anxiety of separation without it being traumatic, such as it probably was for that partner at some point in his past, probably in his family of origin, but also in the case of prior relationships, especially where there was a non-consensual non-monogamy or breaking a monogamy agreement or cheating, whatever you want to call it, but there was a traumatic abandonment. And traumatic separation might cause a fear of abandonment because of what happened in your family of origin. Maybe by way of an absent parent, a parent who died prematurely, a sibling rivalry that you always felt like you had to live in the shadow of a sibling who might have been prettier or more athletic or smarter or whatever. But it could also be from past domestic violence or a death, such as becoming a widower, or even just having a workaholic partner. All of these things can make you very sensitive to being alone and make you have a fear of abandonment. No, don't leave me. And taking behaviors that almost desperately cling to a partner to assuage the anxiety of them being away from you. Let's talk a little bit more about coping with early cohabitation, too early. They say that identifying a problem is the first step towards solving it. This is true with so many things. In mental health, in medicine, at jobs, identifying the problem is the first step toward resolving it. And this applies to many things, but in this case, sometimes the partners just have to sit down and discuss this, that, hey, I think we moved in together before we were really ready to. And that takes some scrambling to adjust to. It doesn't mean you have to break up, although I've seen this outcome sometimes. In order to avoid just saying, hey, we screwed up, we moved in together too early, this isn't working, bye, you need support for just recognizing that the practicality of the timing of moving in together didn't coincide with the natural developmental unfolding of the relationship stages. It's like taking a cake out of the oven before it's done. Just putting it back in the oven for a while doesn't give you the same cake as if you had never taken it out to begin with. The chemistry has to be dealt with. So let's talk about some options for adaptive coping in a situation like this. If you and your partner identify and recognize this situation or feeling that we moved in together too soon, one way of coping with it is consciously reviewing and reasserting the circumstances under which you and your partner live and discussing the reasons why some changes might be needed. Your options include just separating again, identifying different places to live where one or both partners move back out to different residences so that the relationship can be given a fair opportunity to unfold, this time at its natural pace. Or you could discuss what was lost in the sense of individual autonomy that needs to be, number one, recognized, and number two, restored, and why that's important for each of you. Your options to reassert individuality in the face of this living together too early syndrome can mean assessing what space you have in the shared home physically and how it is currently allocated or used or decorated and viewed by each partner. It's my desk versus your desk, or the desk, or our desk. And you can say that about everything in the house. It's also about assessing what time you have for each partner alone and then together alone versus together with others, like your individual friends or shared friends and your respective family of origin, visiting each other's in-laws or visiting your own family, maybe in another town or locally. And this would go beyond just commuting to separate offices during the workday, or even different in-home workspaces if you both work from home, which the COVID pandemic has certainly fostered. I've worked with many gay male couples who have had to work out having workspaces at home in different parts of the home, especially for things like business conference calls or Zoom calls or something like that, because you're both working from home. And after the pandemic really, really subsides, we still might find that people find themselves working from home together in the same house more often than before the pandemic. The days of commuting to an office 5 days a week or whatever it is are probably much diminished as a result of the pandemic, and that might not change even after it's reasonably resolved. So in this discussion, each partner takes his turn at expressing his feelings to the other about these topics, about the use of space and the use of time, and what you're asking for your partner. So I always recommend using what I call experiment joining language. And that might sound like one partner saying to the other, hey, how about if we try this? Fill in the blank. Or I suggest that we each fill in the blank. And then try those things out, living in a new way day by day, and see if you can set a new groove, but in the same house. Shake it up a little bit. And then set a time frame to try the new way of doing things, say 30 days. And then schedule a specific discussion at the end of that experimental period, at the end of the 30 days or 60 days or whatever. And you sit down and you discuss what worked and what didn't, and how you felt about the changes, and maybe what you learned about the other person, what you learned about yourself, what you learned about your needs. And this process will help to inform any behavioral changes that each or both of you need to make for it to work better still as you refine the groove. So together, you're working collaboratively to hold a vision of what each of you in the relationship want your life together to look like. And that might be different from the way of life that you observed in your parents or your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, your siblings, or even your own past relationships. It's not only what works for you, but what works for you now in the present day. And that might be different because you're older or more experienced or have learned preferences from prior relationships or cultural changes or even developmental phase of life changes. The way that you need to live in your 40s or 50s might be different from the way that you lived in your 20s and 30s, and that's even as an adult. The way a middle-aged male couple approaches living together might look very different, often in terms of how comfortable you are with autonomy, from a young gay male couple who they often want a more idealized, romantic, can't get enough of each other lifestyle. Have you ever seen Nick and Pierre on TikTok? They have something like 11 million followers. If you know little cute blonde Nick and the French brunette boyfriend Pierre on TikTok, you see how they have this playful togetherness. It just seems like they're always together, whatever they do. They probably spend a lot of time together. You don't get a sense with Nick and Pierre about what they might be like as an individual when they're not with the other one. So if you want help fixing some dynamics in your relationship that don't fit for you or your partner, or even before all this, help in dating skills or finding a partner to begin with, that's a huge topic I work with, please consider having therapy or coaching services with me or whoever you can find, and I would be happy to help. And the way that you do that is you can email me, Ken, K-E-N, at gaytherapyla.com, Ken at gaytherapyla.com. Gaytherapyla.com is my website if you want more information about me and my services and a little bit about my colleagues that I sometimes refer to if I get full, which I've been kind of lately, but we'll get you connected to somebody who kind of works similar to the ways that I do. So you can email me, Ken at gaytherapyla.com, or you can text. In the United States, that's area code 310-339-5778. So 310-339-5778. I think if you're outside the U.S., the United States phone code is 01, I think. There's like a country code in the area code. I get texts from a lot of places. So if you like the show, hopefully you do, please leave a review. I don't have many reviews of this show, and I'd really like to have some, especially if you like it. And share it. Maybe there's other gay men that maybe this topic doesn't really apply to you, but maybe you have a gay male friend or a gay male couple friend, and maybe they need to hear all this, and maybe some of the other episodes. We have over 90 other episodes at this time that are available. So, good luck, thanks, and I'll see you next time.